Hi guys, morning. I know, Continental Club dropping for you on a Monday. What is going on? The world has gone mad. Basically, this is our prediction show for the 2021-22 campaign. It was supposed to go out on Friday, but we changed it for that Messi news, so we did an emergency Messi video. So now this video, our predictions with the Twitter analyst, the brilliant Twitter analyst Zach Lowy, is now coming to you on a Monday. We talk about Liga, Serie A and the Bundesliga, not La Liga, because that news was put out of date, really, by the Messi news. So yeah, enjoy our prediction show. And there'll be no Continental Club on Friday. This is it for this week. But I'll catch you next week. Bye. Hello and welcome back to Continental Club, where we discuss the hottest topics in European football. And we have an absolute treat for you guys today. Myself and Michael McCubbin are joined by Mr. Zach Lowy, Twitter analyst, BTL vid creator. Zach, thank you so much for coming on the show. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much for having me on. It's a pleasure to be back on the show and really excited for our discussion today. Hopefully the first of many this season.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're going to do this throughout the year, get real experts on in European football that watch a hell of a lot more than us to offer some real nuggets of information. And McCubbs, you must be absolutely thrilled to get Zach Lowy on. I know you're a big fan of him as well.
Yeah, going to be absolutely showing up today, so yeah, looking forward to that. My very basic grasp of European football. But yeah, no, really good to have you on, Zach. And yeah, likewise, very looking forward to the discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. So guys, obviously Liga starts this weekend, so we thought it was the perfect time to do our European football predictions for the 2021-22 season. So it's been a crazy summer. There's been some surprise appointments, some shock sales, and a little bit of business as well. It's obviously been quieter on the continent than in the Premier League, but we'll get into that in due course. And Zach, we want to kick off in Serie A and the big story of the week, Romelu Lukaku possibly joining Chelsea. Firstly, what do you make of this signing from a Chelsea perspective, and what do you think this will mean for Inter Milan as well?
Yeah, it is a bit of a shock. I think that going back to the start of this, I mean, looking at the start of the transfer window, obviously Antonio Conte walking out the door with Inter needing to raise, with the news that Inter need to raise a ton of funds. It seemed like the sale of Achraf Hakimi to Paris Saint-Germain would be, the cash cow, the sacrifice that they needed. And if you ask me, I mean, that sacrifice would have been worth it if they could have kept the other players, but it seems like Romelu Lukaku, by far the most important player behind their Scudetto triumph this past spring, is going to leave for Chelsea. I would say it's pretty much just done and dusted at this point. And yeah, so first and foremost, I mean, massive loss for Inter, massive loss for Serie A, who have really had the privilege of seeing Lukaku, I would say, play his best football so far. I think that he's really emerged into one of the finest center forwards in football. And it's just a bit ironic considering the fact that, one, Lukaku joined Chelsea at a young age, didn't get any opportunities there and left. And two, Chelsea tried to sign Lukaku 3 years ago, and they couldn't. And that was Conte. Antonio Conte wanted to sign him, couldn't sign him. That probably was one of the biggest roots of him leaving Chelsea 1 year later. And then he got his hands on Lukaku, helped turn him into one of the best center forwards in football. And now Thomas Tuchel is going to reap the rewards. So overall, I mean, if you are coming off a season that has seen you win the Champions League and get into some incredibly hot form under your new coach, and you add one of the best center forwards in football, I gotta say I would be pretty optimistic. I know it's been kind of a weird transfer window from Chelsea's point of view. They haven't really managed to offload any deadwood. They've been forced to sell a lot of young players. But if you get a player of Lukaku's caliber, of his quality, I think it's worth it, because looking at this squad, the biggest hole in the squad was the lack of a clear-cut center forward. Obviously, you had the likes of Tammy Abraham and Olivier Giroud, but no real star up top, I would argue. So to add a player like Lukaku to your team, it's just a massive boost. I am a bit curious to see what this means for Tuchel's tactics. Does he switch from his 3-man back line to potentially incorporate a few more attackers? What this means for Kai Havertz. But overall, you have to be optimistic if you're a Chelsea fan, adding a player that is frankly a world-class center forward right now. And just having that player of his caliber in your locker, I think it's just a massive boost. It's a massive boost for the Premier League, and at the same time, it is definitely cause for concern for Inter Milan fans.
Yeah, I mean, Cubs, I want to get onto that from a Inter Milan perspective, having lost Hakimi, who was obviously so vital to them last year as well. Speculation around Lautaro Martinez, and now they've lost their key man in Lukaku. Like, what do you think this means for their chances of retaining the title next season? And if it's not Inter Milan next year, who do you see as the most likely team to topple them?
Yeah, I think it puts their title hopes to bed, to be honest. I mean, I know this Inter team has a lot of quality still in it. Obviously, that midfield has come on really strong in the last 2 years. Barella's been superb, hasn't he? Eriksen came into very good form towards the end of the last season as well. The defence improved as well. Simone Inzaghi is by far, is far from the worst replacement for Antonio Conte as well. I back him to get some good performances out of this team, but Lukaku is so key to them, isn't it? He was so key to that style of play. It was very clear that the club were far more up for selling Lautaro, even though he's on much lower wages, so they wouldn't have got anywhere near as much off the wage bill or in terms of transfer fee either. But I guess it's just, Chelsea's offer is just too good to turn down, and now he's had his head turned, like Zach was saying. It's kind of that's it really. But yeah, I mean, he was a player who he scored over 30 goals for 2 consecutive seasons in all competitions, and I was having a look, and basically no Inter striker has done that in kind of the modern era. I think Icardi did it once maybe. Certainly didn't do it in 2 consecutive seasons. Christian Vieri never managed that. Ronaldo didn't even manage that. Probably would if he hadn't had those terrible injuries towards the end of the 90s. But yeah, it just goes to show just how vital this player was to Inter. And I think losing Lukaku gives Juventus a lot of confidence in wrestling back that title, doesn't it? Obviously Max Allegri's back. No significant business in the market so far. Obviously McKennie's come in. Allegri is supposedly very keen to bring in Locatelli, but that Juve side is still very, very strong. Even last season, you'd probably still argue that they had the strongest squad in the league. De Ligt will be a year older. Chiesa's coming off a superb European Championships. Kulusevski, I feel like, will have the bit between his teeth, won't he? I think he's waiting to explode in Turin. And of course, Paulo Dybala, who played his best football under Allegri, we expect him to come back into the fold as well. So I think you have to say that Juve are favourites. I do think Atalanta could challenge as well.
Yeah.
I know Cristiano Romero is a big loss, but they were still very, very effective as a kind of outside bet for the title even before he came to the club last year. So yeah, and they've not really had any major losses aside from him. They've brought in Juan Musso in goal, who was excellent for Udinese last term, looking to bring in Koop Meiners as well. So I think Atalanta, aside from Juve, are probably the best shout. I know Milan as well, but I just feel like their kind of loss of form towards the end of last season makes me have doubts. I feel like Atalanta's general kind of consistency over the last 3-4 years, I think, pushes them above Milan in my estimations. But I don't know what you think, Dukes. Have you got any outside shouts for the title?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's Juve as well, unfortunately. I wish I could say differently. I think a lot of people on Twitter have been sort of bigging up Napoli and their chances under Spalletti as well. He's obviously got a lot of experience managing in Serie A with Udinese, Roma twice, and Inter Milan. And in terms of like a settled front line, if Victor Osimhen stays fit for the entire year, he looks so dangerous. Didn't quite get the numbers he deserved last year when he was fit. But Mertens, Osimhen, Insigne still there, Zielinski, Ruiz, Lozano, they've got a hell of a lot of firepower. And I think they will be, really gutted with having finished 5th last year. But they've got a very settled side and some real firepower. So I'm saying Napoli is an outside bet, but I think it's going to be Juve. I mean, Zach, quickly, before we move on to potential flops in Serie A, are you with us? Do you think it's Juve, or do you maybe see Atalanta sneaking in there?
I think Juve are definitely favorites for the title. I mean, Inter, when you lose a coach of Conte's quality and of course Lukaku and Hakimi, you can't be considered favorites. In fact, I would say not even favorites to be runners up. So I do think it's Juve's title to win. You're bringing in pretty much a serial winner in Massimiliano Allegri. And I do think that they will add some more firepower to their squad. I think that probably Manuel Locatelli will end up joining. Been some rumors of Miralem Pjanic, who wouldn't be a bad shout either if they could get him on a free. But overall, I think that I see Juve getting stronger, whereas I see Inter getting weaker. Napoli is a decent shot as well. I do think that, not having Champions League to play for and having a proven manager in Spalletti, combine that with your quality in midfield and attack and the lack of departures, I don't think they're a bad shot either. But yeah, I would also look at Atalanta. They will probably end up losing Duvan Zapata, Cristiano Romero, and potentially Josip Ilicic in the same window, and that is a massive blow as well to lose 3 key pillars. But they have shown better than pretty much any other team in Europe, really, their ability to replace key players and not just consolidate but improve. So yeah, I definitely think that Atalanta are going to be a team to watch this coming season.
Absolutely, and it's going to be even more for fans over here in England if they manage to land Tammy Abraham, which is the chat at the moment. I'm not quite sure how they do that financially, with obviously their wage bill being, I think it was the same size as Reading last year. But if they can get Tammy Abraham over the line, I think he'd be an excellent signing for Atalanta. I'm a big fan of Tammy Abraham. McCubs, let's move on to, we've talked about title winners. Let's talk about potential flops in Serie A. And, it feels like I'm just bringing up an old vendetta against Mourinho, but what have you made of Mourinho going to Roma and their business so far? I mean, Rui Patricio's arrived, they've signed this Uzbekistan striker. What do you think? How do you think they'll perform?
It's difficult to know, isn't it? I feel like Mourinho going back to Italy, it could go one or two ways. He obviously had a huge, there was a lot of fanfare surrounding his return to Serie A. Roma fans pretty excited in general, I think. To have a kind of manager of his standing enter the club after what's been by all accounts, I think, fairly disappointing last 2 seasons for them. But yeah, I mean, they spent 17 million euros on Eldor Shomurodov. Sorry if I absolutely butchered his name, but as Uzbekistani striker from Genoa, scored 8 goals in 32 games last term. Can't say I know an awful lot about him, to be honest, but that's been their kind of main outlay so far. I think I was speaking to Henry a couple of weeks ago. We thought kind of maybe someone like Roman Yaremchuk would have been a fairly decent candidate for them. But yeah, otherwise that forward line we know is aging. Edin Dzeko is not the striker that he was. I thought Pedro was good at points last season. Mkhitaryan was obviously their key man last season, but we know about his history with Jose Mourinho. I'm sure he's doing all he can to kind of mend that kind of confidence between the two. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be... The thing is, he's not expected to challenge for the title, I don't think, with Roma where they are right now. Obviously, they're under fairly new ownership. I think they're going to, in the long run, probably try and invest in that squad and back Mourinho. But so far, we haven't seen a huge amount of it. And at this moment in time, I think, qualification for the Champions League would be a massive achievement for them. This is a side which has been, far from convincing for the last 2 years. They're bringing in a coach who has, ultimately disappointed in his last 2 jobs, and is under, quite a lot of pressure, I think. But equally, if Roma were to finish 5th, I would say that was, it's far from a bad season for them. I think if they get 4th, I think it'd be great. And I think actually, we're talking about Inter. Zach was saying how, they're not even favourites for runners-up. I think I completely agree. I think even Inter, if they were to, experience a bad run of form at some point, I think Champions League qualification will be up in the air for them. Such is the competition in Serie A, especially over the last 2 years. We've seen, the race for top 4 is not easy. Milan almost dropped out of it last year, didn't they, before kind of bringing it back at the last. There's very rarely more than kind of 3 or 4 points in it. So I mean that, yeah, I think Roma for sure. There'll always be a little bit of concern with a squad that still needs rejuvenating, I think, and with a manager who, yeah, is far from a guarantee these days. But yeah, I think it could be, quite easily be like an Inter Milan who also disappoint in a massive way this season. So I think it's a bit up in the air in that sense.
Absolutely, I totally agree with the competition. That top 6 or 7 sides in Serie A, so strong, and you're right to call out. Roma finishing 5th is a big achievement. I think they were 16 points off the top 4 last year, which just goes to show that gulf. And with a really leaky defence, you expect Mourinho to improve that. They were really bad in lots of the big games as well. Maybe you'll see some upturn in that. But let's move Roma aside and talk about, Zach, the best signing in Serie A quickly before we move on to Liga. Who has caught your eyes the best signing so far this window?
The best signing in Serie A. That is pretty tough. I feel like we've been more focused on the departures than the incomings.
Yeah.
I think if I had to go for a best signing in Serie A so far, as Mike just touched up on, Roma have had some shrewd moves, I would say, under Thiago Pinto and Jose Mourinho. But I think if I had to pick one signing from Serie A, it would probably be Mike Maignan to Milan. I think that Milan have made some shrewd moves under the past few years of recent ownership with Frederic Massara, Paolo Maldini, and Ivan Gassidis. And I think that this summer, I think bringing in Fikayo Tomori and exercising his purchase clause, that's going to turn into some very shrewd business as well. But Mike Maignan, I think, would be my pick. Milan definitely found themselves between a rock and a hard place with Gianluigi Donnarumma's expiring contract. I don't begrudge Donnarumma for leaving Milan and going to a better club in Paris Saint-Germain, and challenging for the Champions League and getting a massive wage. But I also applaud Milan for not stooping to his and Mino Raiola's wage demands, and just saying, thank you for your time, get out of here. And acting prudently, not allowing it to boil down to the final few days, but taking the first shot and just going and getting Mike Maignan. Maignan has emerged as one of the best goalkeepers in Europe over the past few years. I would argue that he was the best goalkeeper in Ligue 1, even over Keylor Navas last season. Just absolutely fantastic. Kept Lille really in so many games. And I mean, when you look at the price tag, when you look at his age and just how much he has improved, that upward curve, I think it makes a ton of sense. I don't have the exact numbers on me, but I would imagine Maignan is making a lot less than Donnarumma is making in Paris Saint-Germain. It is a bit ironic how, Maignan leaving Paris Saint-Germain's academy, eventually going through Lille and now at Milan, replacing a player who's leaving Milan and going to Paris Saint-Germain. But yeah, overall, I think that this is a really nice piece of business. I don't think they could have found a better replacement for Maignan, for Donnarumma. And frankly, I mean, if you gave me the choice between allowing Donnarumma to walk on a free transfer and bringing in a player of Magnan's caliber, or stooping to his demands and completely sabotaging your wage bill in the process, and opening yourself up for other players to do the same, I would follow what Milan did. And they you could argue they did the same thing with Hakan Calhanoglu, allowing him to join Inter on a free transfer and not stooping to their wage demands. I think that's solid business to them. And I mean, they are definitely learning from some of their mistakes that allowed them to go in a decline and really not have much room to spend financially. So yeah, overall, I think I would go with Maignan. There are a ton of other really nice pieces of business in Serie A. I think Atalanta signing Juan Musso is a really shrewd piece of business. And there have been a lot of other nice moves, but yeah, I would probably go with Maignan to Milan.
Yeah, it's a good shout. It's a very good shout indeed. I saw one of your Twitter threads, which is why you have to follow Zach on Twitter. One of the best follows that I follow on Twitter by distance. Anyway, you were talking about Sandro Tonali and how they've managed to lower the fee and lower his wages, which just seemed like a classic bit of Paolo Maldini business. He was taking to technical director duties like a duck to water, just like in his playing days. Anyway, let's move over to Liga now. We'll park Serie A for now. And my Cubs, the big storyline in France right now, of course, is PSG summer business. Like, obviously lost the league for just the second time in the last 9 years, and they have responded in dramatic fashion.
Yeah, I mean, kind of following on from the Mike Maignan thing, I noted down, Gianluigi Donnarumma as my signing of the summer for Liga. And I mean, you're getting in a kind of generational talent on a free. Obviously, they're paying obscene wages. Obviously, they paid Raul or whatever he wanted, but to lock down the goalkeeper position for the next decade or whatever is a super smart thing to do. And I think and also to take the opportunity when they did as well. Like if say Edouard Mendy's move to Chelsea hadn't gone so well last season, and I know there were a few moments where he wasn't looking on great form, I think you would have had a much more strong kind of competition from Chelsea to go in for Donnarumma as well, but that didn't happen in the end, and they just they took their chance when there was really very little interest in Donnarumma, aside from coming from Paris. So I think he's been a superb signing. I'm really looking forward to to seeing him playing behind Sergio Ramos and Marquinhos. I think that's just going to be they're going to be a formidable defensive unit. Then obviously, bringing in Hakimi, that sorts out a problem position for them in the past. I know question marks remain over Hakimi's defensive abilities, but I think what he brings to your attack makes up for that, especially in a PSG side, which are only going to get kind of more energetic going forward as a result of this. I also think it opens up the possibility for Pochettino to use a back three if he feels he needs to. That could be potential something they potentially do in kind of big Champions League games if they feel like they need to shore up defensively. Obviously Wijnaldum, Ramos, like we were saying. I think the thing is with PSG, it's like in the last few years I feel like we've praised some of the pieces of business they've done because they for a little while they kind of rolled back from making those big signings, kind of post Neymar really. Bringing in players like Ander Herrera, who's not really kicked on in a massive way. Idrissa Gueye, who I think was a more shrewd signing. Players of that type coming in either for free or for fairly minimal transfer fees. But this summer they've kind of managed to do both, with the exception of Hakimi, who obviously came in for a kind of decent wad. All of these players. Wijnaldum, Ramos, obviously they offer experience. Donnarumma does offer experience despite being so young. All of them make a very significant improvement to the side. Ramos brings that leadership that they lost with Thiago Silva going. Wijnaldum, I think, will only make that midfield more functional, and obviously he's very versatile too. Hakimi sorts out that position on the right. I think left back's their only real weak point at the moment. It'll be interesting to see how Juan Bernat comes back from his injury. I think that is still a worry for them. But I think otherwise it just makes them massive favourites for the league. Obviously Lille losing Gaultier is massive, I think. And obviously losing Mike Maignan again, who was so important to them last season. I really can't look past PSG for the title, if I'm honest. And I think also along with Man City, they're probably favourites for the Champions League as well.
Oh, there we have it. Yeah, I'd imagine they'd be straight in amongst the top one or two favourites for that as well. I mean, Zach, I'm not going to ask you who your favourites for the league. I think it's probably more interesting to talk about who's going to become second, third, fourth. I mean, a lot of people have been praising Marseille's business. Obviously, they had a really difficult year last year with that training ground incident. AVB then resigning, but some of their business has been really impressive, and Monaco too. I mean, who do you see of the chasing pack being closest to PSG?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that PSG are going to win the title, but I don't think I wouldn't say it's going to be a runaway like it was in previous years. But yeah, as far as chasing the pack, it's been really interesting because we've been told for the past few months that like every single Ligue 1 club not named PSG is on the brink and, you know, are going to end up being liquidated because of this failed TV deal. And yet, you know, the likes of Nice, Monaco, Marseille, Rennes are all putting in incredible transfer windows and not even losing that many players. So it's been kind of interesting. I'm really not sure who I would go with for second. If you had to put a gun to my head, I guess I would put Monaco, but it's really tough, to be honest. I do agree though that PSG will end up reclaiming their title. I think that looking at their business, obviously Donnarumma, a very shrewd signing. Bummer what it's going to mean for Keylor Navas, but
yeah,
at the end of the day, like I understand it. You are not going to pass up that opportunity. I think that their best signing so far from that bunch is Achraf Hakimi. I think that he provides proven quality in a position where they have been desperately lacking in the likes of Alessandro Florenzi, Colin Dagba, Thilo Kerrer. And yeah, I do think it will probably end up seeing Pochettino move to a back three, like we saw in Tottenham in, I think, 2016-17, with, I would say, Hakimi and Bernat as wingbacks and a back three of Ramos, Kimpembe, and Marquinhos. Not sure really what the midfield is going to be, but I do think that it's going to be a very solid option.
Yeah, I think yeah, that'd be absolutely fascinating. In terms of the chasing power, I think Marseille under Sampaoli definitely deserve a little shout out as well. Some of their business, Saliba, Guendouzi arriving on loan, Cengiz Ünder too, Conrad de la Fuente as well. He's got a big reputation from Barcelona B. Baladi, obviously, who was on loan there from Dortmund last season. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. In terms of the flop of Ligue 1, well, I think it's difficult to look past Lyon, really. They obviously finished 4th in 2020-21. They've obviously lost Memphis Depay on that free deal, who was involved in 40% of their league goals last term. Joachim Andersen's left as well. Obviously, he wasn't part of their squad last year. He was at Fulham. They've got a fairly good price for him for Crystal Palace, for a player they didn't really want. But I don't really get why they didn't want him. I think he's excellent. And could have done a job at a better Premier League club than Crystal Palace, to be totally honest. I think he would have done well at Arsenal, Spurs, etc. They brought in Damien Da Silva on a free transfer and Enrique, left back from Brazil, who I don't know a whole lot about. But Lyon, I think it's going to be really, really difficult for them this year. What I am looking forward to from their perspective is seeing a bit more Maxence Caqueret, a bit more Ryan Cherky as well. Hopefully he finally gets the sort of explosion onto the scene that we've been looking for a while. And they've still got a lot of good forward options in Kadewere, Slimani, Moussa Dembele's come back on loan, of course. I feel like I'm forgetting someone, but it will come back to me later. Anyway, so Lyon potentially going in for a little drop down. Zach, it's come to that time where we need to decide the best signing of Ligue 1. Maybe one that we haven't mentioned already. Has anyone caught your eye from one of the smaller clubs potentially?
Yeah, there have been a lot of really interesting signings from, say, Marseille, Monaco, Nice. But actually, my pick is going to be Loic Bade of Rennes. I think it's a really interesting move. Bade joined Lens on a free transfer after just playing, I think, like 7 games in Ligue 2 for Le Havre. But he really became a revelation in Lens' back three under Frankheis, and really one of the most exciting center backs in Europe last season, I would say. So Rennes bringing him in from Lens and replacing him with replacing the departing captain Damien Da Silva, bringing in a player who's younger, who's, in my opinion, more versatile and just, I would say, a lot more aggressive. It's really shrewd business. I've been really impressed with Bade in his debut Ligue 1 season. He clearly has characteristics that, like, in terms of aerial ability, in terms of coming off his line and intercepting danger. I definitely think that, Rennes paid a decent amount of money for him, but if he can show the same kind of performances that he did at Lens, I think that Rennes will be making a hefty profit on him soon, just like they did with, for example, Ismail Assar, with Ousmane Dembele, with so many other players. So I'm really excited to see how Bade does in Rennes under Bruno Genesio. I think that, looking at the signings that they are making, they brought in Kamaldeen Sulemana from Nordsjælland. They've brought in Bade. They've brought in Berger Melling, who I was really impressed with at Nîmes, despite them getting relegated. So some really shrewd business. Obviously, all eyes will be on whether or not they end up keeping Eduardo Camavinga, as well as Benjamin Borrejod, who's been linked with a move to Real Betis. But even if they end up selling Camavinga, I think that they will find a decent replacement. There's been links with Jens Kajus from Midtjylland to replace Camavinga. So I think that they are going to be a really fun team to watch. Had a bit of a down year last season, getting Champions League football for the first time and really kind of failing to build on that momentum under Julian Stefan. But they finished the season strong under Genesio. They finally secured that balance. And I do think that, looking at players such as Jeremy Doku, who it seems to really be coming into his form after some teething issues. I think Doku, Sulemana, Bade, it's going to be a really interesting team to watch, honestly. There are still obviously some pieces of business that they need to work out. They are going to need to find a replacement for Steven Nzonzi after his after going back from his loan from Roma, and obviously they will need to sort out the situation with Eduardo Camavinga. But I do think that bringing in Loic Bade is it seems like an incredibly low risk, high reward kind of buy from their point of view. He is a really promising, really interesting center back who, for me, has shown that he's capable of adapting to a higher level. And I'm really excited to see how Bade does in the Rennes defense.
There we have it. What a shout. Love it. Loic Bade. I thought you were going to go down the Calvin Stengs route, maybe at Nice as well. I think he was brought in for a really, good fee. Very, a bit of a bargain, really, compared to what he was linked with in the last 12 months or so, with sort of double that fee of about 30 million euros I saw him linked with over the last 18 months or so. So for getting him for 15, fantastic. Also thought Nice have done well to pick up Mario Lemina for 5.5 million euros. Obviously hasn't been at his best. Last year at Fulham, I think he's sort of needs to pull his finger out. I think he's way more talented than he's been playing in the last few years, at least. Early on in his career at Southampton, he looked like he was going to go to become a really, really top player, and he hasn't quite delivered thus far. So I'm excited to see what he can do under Christophe Galtier at Nice. My Cubs, let's go over to our final league we are discussing. Germany, the Bundesliga, recently being given the rights to Sky Sports, which is very exciting for us as well. So maybe we'll be creating a Bundesliga show next year. Stay tuned for that. But Germany this summer, it's really all been about the managers and the managerial merry-go-round, because it's been absolutely crazy.
The Bundesliga, this is, the managerial merry-go-round is just like nothing we've ever really seen before, isn't it? Obviously, Nagelsmann going to Bayern, Marco Rose going to Dortmund, Adi Hütter going to Gladbach, Glasner going to Frankfurt, Wolfsburg appointing Mark van Bommel, which was quite a wild card shout, I think. Obviously, Gerardo Seoane going from Young Boys to Leverkusen, Jesse Marsch going to Leipzig. So yeah, it's all changed, and it's quite exciting for that reason, because it's kind of difficult to know what's going to happen aside from Bayern Munich obviously winning the thing. That will certainly happen, especially if Sabitzer completes the move there, as is currently being talked about.
It's so boring,
for ridiculous money. Yeah, it's just well, I mean, I'm sure he'll be very successful, but obviously that just weakens Leipzig, and I think Leipzig would probably be. They certainly have the most strength and depth, don't they? I think of Bayern's challengers, Leipzig, especially in those forward areas. But losing a leader like Sabitzer, obviously losing Upamecano and Konate, although they got decent money for them. Bringing in Simakan, I think Simakan, would be is a great pickup. Guardiola as well is very promising, but that defence is a bit of a concern. I think Jesse Marsch is, a fantastic manager, done a great job at Salzburg, but again, he's in the league for the first time. There's surely going to be a little bit of an adjustment period in that sense. I Andre Silva, potentially the signing of the summer in the Bundesliga so far. But again, I don't know. I don't see them having quite enough to catch a Bayern side, which I think is already kind of set up for Nagelsmann to take over. I think that the work that Hansi Flick did, especially in that kind of first 12 months, I think makes it the perfect job for Nagelsmann to take, in terms of taking over a side which is already playing quite high pressing football. All he needs to do is just make tweaks here and there. He's working. He's got such great experience in that squad, and and a great mix of young players as well. I think they're probably gonna. I can kind of just see them running away with it, to be honest. But I'm excited to see how Dortmund do as well. I think Marco Rose, I feel like his reputation maybe got a little bit soured from that last season at Mönchengladbach. Obviously announced the departure quite early. Their form wasn't amazing, even around kind of Christmas, New Year time, but then it kind of dropped off, didn't it, towards the end of the campaign. And obviously they've lost Jadon Sancho as well, but I really like the Donyell Malen signing. It's going to be really interesting to see how he fits into the side. Obviously just a very good all-round attacker, can kind of be that goal scorer, but also has very good creative numbers as well. A good ball carrier. And I was listening to a podcast yesterday actually, and they were suggesting that Rosa could even bring back his kind of preferred diamond formation in order to fit in Malen and Haaland in kind of more central roles as a front two, and then maybe have Royce playing behind them. Obviously Reina can play in that 10 role as well. Obviously him and Bellingham are a year older and only getting better and better as well. I think defence probably still remains a bit of an issue for them, but I think getting in Gregor Kobel from Stuttgart is a big upgrade on Roman Bürki. He's obviously been come in for his fair amount of stick over the years.
Deservedly.
I think Dortmund will also be a really exciting team to watch next season. But there's just so many unknown kind of things in this season, because all the best sides are under new management, and kind of starting. Some of them are kind of starting afresh as well with new projects. So I'm really looking forward to the Boo.
Yeah, it's going to be a season of real change. I think Nagelsmann, with the signing of Upamecano, obviously he's already worked with them beforehand. David Alaba's left, but Upamecano, had a bit of a shaky time at points in the Champions League last year, but he's clearly one of the best emerging centre-backs in Europe, has been for a number of years. I think he'll be a crucial part of that side. I'm looking forward to seeing how Niklas Süle does as well. Obviously he worked under Nagelsmann at Hoffenheim in the past as well. Again, has struggled really to come back from that really bad, was it a knee injury as well? So we'll see what happens with Bayern. I mean, it's difficult to look past them for the title. I mean, Zach, in terms of like emerging talents in the Bundesliga, there's loads to choose from, but I think a lot of people would probably be pretty excited to see whether Yusufa Moukoko could have a bigger role at Dortmund. I mean, what do you think about his role under Marco Rose this term, and which other young talents do you see coming through the Bundesliga?
Yeah, Moukoko is a really nice shout. I think that what was one thing that was really intriguing about Marco Rose's Gladbach is you would often see like three center forwards, well, quote unquote center forwards, playing at the same time in the same attack, and doing really well together, overlapping, creating that chemistry. I think that we saw that with likes of Marcus Thuram, Breel Embolo, Lars Stindl, and Alassane Play. So I think that there's a potential there for the same thing to take root at Dortmund. And I think that bringing in Donyell Malen is a sign of that, because he's not, like, in my opinion, I know that he is the Sancho replacement. You're not going to spend that kind of money if you don't have a windfall coming from the Sancho move. But for me, he's far more similar to like a player like Erling Haaland. He's, in my opinion, he's definitely more of a center forward than a winger. But I do think that speaks to what Dortmund are trying to do, trying to replicate Marco Rose's success at Gladbach. And almost playing players, more central attackers together. So with regards to that, I think that Moukoko, he's a bit of a hybrid. But I think he could have a really big role under Marco Rose, who has not been. He's the type of coach to give young players opportunities. Obviously, it's easy to do that when you're coaching clubs like Salzburg or Gladbach, but I think that Moukoko could certainly have a big role to play. Apart from him, I think one player actually who I'm really intrigued to see how he does is David Raum, joining from, I believe, Gröner Fürth in the second tier on the back of a really impressive U21 Euros showing for Germany. In my opinion, he was the best left back in the tournament. Really impressive at going forward, whipping in some crosses, and dribbling and helping in the build-up. I thought that it was a really shrewd piece of business from Hoffenheim to bring him in for, I believe it was a free transfer, and bringing in a young player with potential to give you a proven upgrade at left back, but also give the potential of getting a nice profit as we've seen in previous years with likes of Nico Schulz. So I think that Rome is definitely a player who I'd be looking at. And yeah, as Mike mentioned, I think Leipzig, it's hard to look past them as potential challengers. I think that Bayern are almost certainly going to win the league title, especially if they get Sabitzer. But I don't know, if I'm Leipzig, I don't know, 15 million euros is just not that much money, I think, for a player of Sabitzer's quality. I feel like I'd almost rather just bite the bullet and have him leave like on a free transfer next summer, which sounds silly, but it's like for a player of Sabitzer's quality and in a season where like Leipzig have a decent chance of at least challenging, Bayern have had some have been pretty shaky in preseason. Obviously it's just preseason, but I don't know. I think but the thing that I'm most excited for, apart from seeing Jesse March, an American coach RB Leipzig, is seeing their young talents. And yeah, I think that honestly, if I had to pick one signing in Bundesliga, it's there are plenty of young players who it's easy to pick. I mean, I think Mohamed Smakan, Josko Guardiola are really impressive replacements for Ibrahima Konate and David Upamecano. But if I had to pick one player, one signing, it would probably be Andre Silva. I think that Silva...
What a bargain.
What a bargain. Like, 23 million euros. I mean, that is crazy. I believe there's like 12 million in potential add-ons, but like, for a player who was, one of the best strikers in Germany, one of the best players in Germany last season, bringing him in, probably the best striker not named Haaland or Lewandowski, bringing him in, and that's just a really shrewd piece of business. I think that was probably Leipzig's Achilles heel last season, just not having a proven goal scorer after Timo Werner's departure. Alexander Sorloth, Hwang Hee-chan didn't really quite hit the ground running, shall we say. Yusuf Poulsen is a good player, but he's definitely more of like a Robin to a Batman. He's never going to be Batman. But I think that Andre Silva definitely has what it takes to be a consistent 20-plus goal scorer in the Bundesliga. I'm really glad that he's finally gotten a team that trusts him. Well, he did with Eintracht Frankfurt. I think that will also be the case with Leipzig, because they're going to be counting on somebody to provide those guarantees in attack. So yeah, I think that this move is really shrewd, really under the radar bargain from Leipzig's point of view. You also have Brian Broby coming in on a free transfer from Ajax. But I think that, personally, I think that the Silva deal has what it takes to be the best signing in the Bundesliga. I just think that's what really they needed, a guarantee and a proven goal scorer. So hopefully it goes well for him. And yeah, I like the chances of this transfer working out.
There we have it. Yeah, and Andre Silva as Leipzig's Batman. Love it. Heard it here first. He'd actually make a great Batman. Good looking guy as well. So yeah, we'll see what happens with Andre Silva at Leipzig. I think it's going to go pretty well. Another team that I'm intrigued to see how they do this year. I mean, they've obviously got Champions League football as well, so we'll see them in that. Is Wolfsburg. I think Van Bommel's an interesting appointment, as McCubb said. Only has one full year at PSV, and they finished, I think it was 3 points behind Ajax, so they're pretty close in 2018-19. They actually they lost one more game than Ajax that year as well, so they were perhaps slightly unfortunate to finish second. But Wolfsburg, despite all the speculation around Weghorst, Brekalo, Schlager, Maximilian Arnold as well, they've kept hold of all of their players as well, and they've brought in Sebastian Bornau from Cologne and Lucas Nemecha from Man City as well, who killed it on loan at Anderlecht last season. So maybe Wolfsburg potentially one to watch. I'm intrigued to see how well they do in the Champions League as well, and they've kept hold of Maxence Lacroix as well so far, despite a lot of speculation around him. So we'll see what happens in the Bundesliga as well. Okay, it's time for quickfire questions. We really don't have very long on this. We've only got about 5 minutes left on the Zoom recording. We've already set up 2, so we're just doing this quickly. And it comes in from Swagato is back. Zach, you might not be aware of Swagato, but he basically runs Euro Football Daily. And he has asked, who is going to win the Champions League / Europa League? Who are your favourites for the continental competitions this year, Zach?
Oof, that is really tough. I think, man, that is super tough, honestly. It's hard to look past Paris Saint-Germain despite their ghosts in Europe. I think that if I had to pick one team, it would be PSG, because we have seen them consistently improve in Europe. And I don't know, I think, Mbappe's last dance, maybe, I don't know, maybe we'll be having a Netflix documentary on that 25 years. But yeah, I don't know. It's hard to look past PSG. City, if they get Kane and Grealish, are another team. I would probably have PSG and City if they can complete those moves. And yeah.
Fair. McCubbs, are you putting anyone else in there for the Champions League?
No, I kind of said PSG and Man City earlier. I think, Bayern Munich under Nagelsmann could be really exciting, couldn't they? Last season, I think we were kind of bigging them up until kind of halfway through the season, and then it very much was kind of Man City in terms of, I think they kind of took their crown, didn't they, in terms of just like the best team in Europe overall. I think Chelsea with Lukaku, they won it last year without him. A full season under Tuchel. Tuchel's made 2 Champions League finals in a row now. He knows how to win 2-legged ties, as does Jurgen Klopp. If Liverpool can bounce back, I think it's going to be, it could be a really, really good Champions League campaign, I think. And yeah, there's a number of clubs outside there who I think who could cause upsets as well. But yeah, I think I'll go the same. I think I'll say PSG.
Fair. I'm going to go Man City, but I feel bored with myself for saying that. I think watch out for Juve, maybe under Max Allegri. Obviously reached 2 finals in the past. Their squad needs a lot of work, but I think he's got a certain amount of know-how. They've underperformed in the Champions League for the last few years. It probably won't happen, but maybe Juve could get into the mix. I think a semi-final for them would be a great achievement. And as for the Europa League, I'm going with Napoli, Swagato, but we don't have time to answer that in full. Guys, thank you so much for watching Continental Club for this week. Zach, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on, dropping all sorts of knowledge about, players coming over from America, Celta Vigo, etc. It really was a treat. Where could the good people of Football Daily and Euro Football Daily find you?
Thank you so much for having me on. It was a pleasure. You can find me on Zach Lowy on Twitter, ZACHLOWY, as well as my website, BTLvid, BTLVID, and breakingthelines.com, the website I run. And yeah, make sure to also check out my weekly podcast on Portuguese football. We just launched our first episode of our new season yesterday on the Cortelinha show. So, if you are not really following Portuguese football and don't have the time to watch the games, but, want to stay up to date on it, I highly recommend following and subscribing to our weekly podcast on Portuguese football.
Perfect. I love that. Yeah, definitely follow Zach on Twitter. His Twitter handle will be below his picture on screen right now. He is the best follow on Twitter by a distance, in my opinion. McCubbs, it's been an absolute dream having Zach on, hasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's been fantastic. Yeah, really good fun. Yeah, once again, good to get some fresh knowledge in. I'll be looking up highlight vids of Galan for sure. That's definitely a player I've not spent enough time on so far. So yeah, no, it's been really
completed dribbles in Europe after Adama Traore last season, I believe.
Really? How did that slip under my radar?
Perfect. Well, thank you very much to McCubs. Thank you very much to Zach. We'll catch you next time. Have a great weekend. Bye.